Okay, I'm going to continue my work from yesterday. We were thinking about the time pass. We want to speed the game time in two different ways. One is through buttons, and it's um, similar to the way Oblivion Skyrim do it. You will be presented with a horizontal slider that you type your hour value. Click OK, so that say 6 hours later. Of course, in our game, we will day, hour, minute, week, or even year value. Going to be granular and just so I can either work on that. I think that's a good way to start the stream. I was planning to do some other work, selecting objects, some formation through my overlay, but let's continue with the time management instead of jumping. So we already have some kind of time UI here. Going to put some dummy values so that we screen. Time is currently presented in I don't know what's called European. It's 24-hour display. It's actually 3 afternoon, 14. The placement right now will need buttons. Stick buttons here first and containers. This button, pause button, fast forward, sort of like speed 1 and speed 2, two different fast forwarding. And another button that is up the for size. Um, we are going to need icons for this. For now, can we get away with this? Pose, forward 1, 2, can deal with that. In this box. Fine. Need this. All the layout is subject to change. It has to look decent enough that it doesn't get. We'll take care of it in inbox is the time goes for run it And of course, because I've been moving nodes, it is not valid. Let's actually uh, what else do we need to forward? Another button. Turning on the index for more precise date. Just going to arbitrarily name it calendar so that we are looking at it through of schemes. There's a chance that this control node time, I'm thinking of inbox will probably be, yeah, that is actually a leftover from yesterday's conversation. Pause button, we already have basic pause game script. When the user player presses space pause key, pause the game. You could put something like this. Pause. It's reversing the state of whether the game is. First, then the next concern is the game is not paused, and the pause button is displaying uh, basically should always be displaying the correct value. So say if the player pressed the space bar, pause the icon for this pause button should reflect that it's paused. But after that, if it presses the pause button again, the game will state. So this control here should probably be centralized so that you're not doing the same thing into. Similarly, there might be other reasons for the game to be paused. Tutorial screen or some event is firing, event in the during gameplay should pause the game. So pausing the game should realize thing. So we actually have an event button. Could create a signal game pause. What we could do if the action is pressed, it's going to sound a bit polluted here, but it's going to when we actually accomplish this pausing other parts of So when the pausing action, we should tell the game or event bus that we want to trigger game pause. And this line will go into the central. That's uh, singleton. Just thinking whether the singleton should already live in. Don't make it a singleton. Put script file where we know that it's always loaded. Time is, for now, time script seems like it's always going to be. Stick it here. Going to be code our signal game posts. So by when game is post, so in ready signal. So when the game is post, script. Kind of curious whether I think I saw once that they found the function. No longer need it. Connect this event. Event is closes. Let's test this stuff. Oh, double slash. This should be. So pressing the spacebar. Post. It's cool. Now we have to for the speed buttons. Could either create its own script file that manages these buttons, or we put them in this time. Some of this stuff here in the time script will have to go in its own maybe utility script, because there will be cases, I'm guessing, the game where we will do date comparison. This kind of date comparison where you fill in two dates and it's comparing them. This is generic enough. It doesn't belong to script file that is. So this file will actually lose some of its weight. Similarly, this add date logic. A lot of this will probably have to be its own utility. Okay, I'll clean it up a bit. So event handlers close to each other. I mean, even this may actually go into separate place, because this kind of thing will have to be registered in save by. But let's not move so many things at the same time. What do we need? We actually need a content. We'll actually write some function. Those press wheel. What we are actually doing, we are calling the event button, same sequence. But here's the beauty of it. This will trigger this, which will either pause the game or so technically this function's name, it implies that it's only pausing the game, but it's actually pausing or resuming the game. It's not the most accurate name, but it's doing. Here, what we should probably do is change the state of icon or the text, so that if the game is paused, let's say if the game is playing right now, it should change the title of this pause button, should say resume, or the right icon. In a sense, it's a toggle button. I do remember that the case toggling through the buttons, but I don't want to necessarily keep it in the why I kind of do. So when it's pressed, it stays pressed, shows the pressed icon. Click it again, it goes back to its unpressed, the normal looking state. It should indicate to the player that yes, the game is running. Only if you click, you can. And in terms of icon business, so we could right now create an icon. There you go. And normal. So for now, I'll go for the best flat background. Say color for the normal state. Normal state could actually, it's fine. Toggle mode. Say pressed. Going to look. So the only thing that actually has to change right now is the text. Now for now, just so we see this is working, confident that it will work color wise, but let's test the color. Closing the game, it shows its press state. Click again, it should go back to its normal state. Unpause the game. Doesn't. Because, yeah, here's the thing. For the pause button, trigger that, we actually bound the event pressed. Instead, we should actually do toggle, because now the button is toggle toggle state. So pause toggle. This line should do. This was taking it to script, unless I have a mistake. Let's run it again. Pause the game. Number stopped incrementing. Click it again. Does not. Huh. Action mode button release. Let's change this to press. Good. Hmm. So it's definitely in test. Dynamic series, click that. Exactly what we are toggled. Let's first put it triggering PR. True. Oh, okay. This is the mistake. When we pause the game, we actually stop the whole engine. So all the controls that basically have their pause mode inheriting, they're inheriting the game's paused state. All the scripts that are supposed to fire, they are also actually um, let this button's calls to be basically listened by the game engine. All the actions go through those. Actually what it's supposed to. And this actually should probably go back to this indicates that as soon as I click, that is actually press. I have not released the mouse. Sometimes you may want to do things like, well, you just accidentally press something, but you don't want to release it, so you may move the mouse away and release it. That would not, if you set the mode to release, releasing the cursor outside the will not trigger the release. But if it's set to press, it's too late. You just happen to press on it. So let's change and prove that point. Clicked it, but I did not release it. I'm releasing outside. It doesn't come. Only if I actually finish my click on this button will it trigger to or will pause or on. So again, the only thing that is actually maybe nice to have at this point is to something like, well, there is going to be a pause button. This text value should be so that displays pause game is oh, 3 post. If post is true, then we'll say else post. Side because I haven't actually told this yet. First pause the game so this works with the button click. Let's see if it spacebar. Now it won't work with spacebar because when we do the spacebar is only controlled in game script. So when this is fired, this code is running. It is no longer reaching. So instead of putting this pause text change, when the pause button is triggered, it should also centralize that only when the game is paused or resumed, then we also alter the state of button click, resume function space. Slight boo boo there, I think. Or check. So that is good. Okay, the only thing that's actually is missing, everything is working, I believe. It says resume. When you click, it will resume. The press state is not. Threw me off. Click resume. Game should show pause. It does, but there's something going on with this state. I think for now I'll just leave this because so much will change in regards to the way the icons are used. All these buttons. Um, I think I'm noticing it. Pressing once, keyboard, sort of double fire. So pausing. Oh, I think this is happening because of the toggle. Maybe we'll still do this with just one button click, but maybe press state will look like it's. It means that we may have. Sorry, the pressed or signal. Blank space is working to. And I might have possibly something up here. Focus state would have been. Anyway, this will all change. But the logic is working. Icons will replace the text. These are some aesthetic. That is certainly not needed at this point. Spaces, resuming, pausing, clicking thing. Also do the same. We have this temporary red that is indicating that button has. We still have that. It temporarily runs the game. See the up, the press. Oh, I think I know why this. Because this button has gained focus. So when I hit the space, I'm actually both triggering the button and also the game script is reading a keystroke. So both the space and the button click, because the button is not focused, so it's also the same keyboard events. So if I click outside, go to another button, if I press space, I should see see the timer run again. Yep. So we have to disable key press for the resume button. That's one way of doing it. I think this won't be an issue later. That is because I quite lazily chose the space key for pause. Normally I will probably leave the space as it is, like when the I don't want to disable the accessibility, the UI component. If the player decides to tab between and hits the space bar, then they should be able to click that button. That being said, um, in an outdoor gardening simulation, what kind of shortcut would you want to trigger if you hit the space key? Would anyone bind the space key? I think it's really convenient. A lot of people might find space key. It's large enough to pause the game. I think that was my. I'll just leave it as it is. Although I admitted there was a little choice, but it was maybe smart. Maybe much more sense to be focus mode, only click, do the focus, still in focus, space is, okay, it still considers this click, do not. Yeah, it's now working, it's fine. So this bug that I mentioned, when I changed it from the toggle event or toggle signal to press signal, I could have stayed the same. But again, the icons is working just fine. Spacebar because we disabled focus from the from the button. So now that we have focused pose, let's go fast forwarding 1 and 2. Right now every 200 milliseconds timer goes off, which then triggers which adds 5 minutes to the current time. Moves the sun, so the sun can do its rotational. So what does speeding time mean? Did we set an arbitrary number of, say, like instead of adding 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes to do that? We probably need another something that indicates that we want to go back to the could create a dictionary in normal mode. It's 5 minutes. It's, let's go with speed for now. Probably need the speed, the name. I might have to make edge here right now. Speed mode is normal. Click normal. Mode similar to this. Fast. Actually, this seems it's bugging me. Let's do. Just noticed that I generally rebind it. Let's do advanced speed mode. The argument string value will be normal. This is the going to happen here. Well, say value is value. No longer need this stuff. Say come back. This was the so now all these three buttons are calling the same method with their own custom value, which is setting the speed mode. Once speed mode is set to normal, fast, or fast, speed dictionary will give the value once it's requested. So this should it's interesting. So now we are in normal speed, moving the time forward 5 minutes at a time. It should be 15 minutes at a time. It is. It's happening so fast that it's we are now testing 1 second on the game. Every second we have 5 minutes. Should be 25 minutes. Hit the 42, 25, it's 7. 15 at a time. 22, 37, 52. Good. Back to normal. That is good. When we do post. Now, would be nice to have the speed buttons resume the game as well. So from post state, if you click the normal button, not only should we change the speed mode back to normal, because imagine this scenario. You were running the game in super fast mode, 25 minutes going by. You're just freaking out, you press the pause button. Fine. Now, should you just resume the game and quickly hit the normal button, we're going to missing it at least for a second or opposite. The timer is less than a second, and it's going to move the time forward 25. It's just annoying. So you should be able to pause the game in a super fast mode. Just hit the normal button so that you are actually playing the game at a calmer speed. And the same thing goes for from normal to fast forwarding between those states. So this speed mode is really, we are essentially calling this, except we are, if we call this as it is, game is running, it's going to pause the game. So we should actually force the game to resume. So we can actually do it this way. We assume that post, we just say, well, if it's post or not, I don't care. The game's false state is just going. And we should probably do this way so that we set our value, then we resume the game. Let's go. Let's fast forward to bring fast. Hitting the space key, testing it. I hit the normal button. This is because I have set the pause mode for these buttons. Processed. Forward to 5. Now I'm going to use the spacebar to pause. Aha. Okay, this is the same problem we had with all these 3 buttons. What was it? Focus mode. Forward, spacebar, click normal, hit pause. I can either hit the resume button so that pausing it, but instead of hitting the resume button to resume the game, fast forward. Should also like to change this button state. Because now that we do this, we are actually bypassing, just taking care of. Huh. If we separate this into its own function, update and this is only temporary. Here with icons, it's going to be different, but the same problem will happen with this. You'll still want to see the correct role of the icon swap will replace this line of code. When we do pause the game through events, hit the pause button. But we also want to call the update pause button. If we click the speed buttons, and it's basically doing its own check whether it's paused or not. The space bar paused. In order to resume, hit it again, it's paused. Hitting fast forward button is running the game. Should have done this. Because I'm actually calling it right before I change the state of. Let's do it again. It's paused, fast forward to the pause state, changing it, changing the game speed while it's still running, pausing it. We are actually in the super fast mode. We are back to the unpause. Good. I think it's time that I got fresh tea. I'll be back soon. So I think the next step is that fast forward time that is showing more precise date power really taking fast forward. Of course, these values are arbitrary. Everything has to be precisely calibrated to work on this. The idea is that similar to the way the pause button, we hit the calendar, the game should pause and where we are selecting more precise year, day, time value to fast forward the game. Calendar button will do pressed. Hit first, pause the game. I want to handle it through signal. So let's imagine a scenario. Game is running, you hit calendar, pause signal is firing. So it will pause the game. But what if the game is paused? The calendar button actually resume the game. It's not what we want. So similar to the way we always run the game, speed are pressed. They always want to run the game. And this is where things sort of starting to look a little bit ugly. Thinking as the value when we trigger the event signal. By default, it's always true. It will be paused. Or not. Let's complicate this too. Um, this may be actually enough now. I'll think about it when we have more, like many more cases where we are interfering with the pause mechanics by a drag call. Because handling things through pause the game. And because we pause the game, we also should update the pause state of. We are not changing the speed mode. We are bringing up bring up now the next point of discussion is, do we create the UI inside our scene? Now I dealt with some pop-up, hold the name, yeah, remember, pop-up. I worked Meat Crafter Pro, our first game. Crafter. That actually had some screens, overlay screens. Not covered the whole game area, but they were essentially wide screens covering the game area. Um, but I remember at a certain step that I chose to stay away from the pop-up node, but I went with a panel node. Does it no longer mattered, or pop-up node had some behavior when you clicked outside, whether it was exclusive or you could actually click outside to close it? There was something. Need some help. Show dialogues and it's a sub window and model bar. That is the behavior I was describing. So I don't think I'll go with this. Because it sounds like all the right intent method for creating pop-up. Maybe I didn't know something better back then, and you can always change it back to the way you remember how it's done. Pop-up. This pop-up will be calendar. This may later be its own scene and injected here, because I'm thinking we might have to open the calendar pop-up, which will be responsible for fast forwarding the game in different situations, such as imagine you're in the middle of a scenario or tutorial going. Maybe there will be some kind of helper button somewhere. Say, well, fast forward the game a month or 2 months. So it's as if the player opened the calendar UI, shows 1 month, hit the approve button. So in a similar fashion, yeah, the calendar UI might have to be somewhere in the time. We'll see. It's always easy to extract stuff. For those, will be fine. Side calendar, what do we want? By default, the visibility will be off, so whatever we put in here will be visible. So we need background to put this panel. Mind you, for pop-up, we have a pop-up with a panel background. We'll change this to this type pop-up. That is fine. Now we are displaying it. Let's center. Kind of label. Say big date. Up wide. What else do more labels? Page sliders. So I'll create slider. Now yesterday I was working on a prototype. That year value for day. Moving it by a certain amount is too granular. Yeah, I think that's what we just always control the minute by these buttons. Maybe 4 different selectors. 3 years title. You will probably go into we will definitely need a vertical to to just state. I'll just show you what this is going to be. And we will duplicate this. This will be day. Have year, month, day. Okay. See. Pick some arbitrary. Minimum value is 0. Maximum value 100. That's too many. Maybe we should let the player fast forward. Steps are 1. Now this month value most likely in terms of weeks. So use 5. Should fast forward 5 times for 2 because there is no month concept in our classical sense that we don't show months. So it's just year 1, 1046, whatever. There's no month. So say this many month in the future, you are basically saying the value of the month slider time weeks corresponding to days. So it's going to be 5 times 7. that should probably be this will be. I mean, we could just pick 30 as like 30 whole days in a month. I think we know it's still true enough. We'll decide on the tick number for now. Let's try to. Should have probably done this original batch here. So I copied it. But yeah, this is all going to change. Probably need some kind of space. What we also need let's go with a question here. How many much for maybe this should value here in this slider 0 should actually say 0. The player deciding we could just change the numbers next. Although yesterday our plan was sentence, we will fast forward the game and for um we may not need that sentence. Players already seeing the so we will have to automate to dip into yeah this most likely will do the branch. Because now I'm going into the script area when I write the script and plus it's good practice. Scripts. They whoa oh because this is So when we thinking of a scenario, I think I vaguely remember why I chose to stay away from a pop-up. There was something going on. Pop-ups were turned off. Remembering, not remembering previous values. Ideally, here's value is here, and we confirm and close this Y pop-up. Next time we open it, actually the value is. So let's just worry about changing the title of video trigger, opening, closing trigger. So when we change slider, so of course this is going to be on value. Can we do better? For sliders, much going only increment or decrement their date value string. The one don't need a sip. Only want to change. Where is the value come? Another good question. So normally when you find it, the value is always in. But when you add, but these are extra call arguments. Okay, yeah. So value is always coming in. Empty, scene is empty because we have to go to the road. The pop-up. Change the year value. C2 and year. So I'm going to click the end so that and value is value and extra arc0 and select date type. So in the first case, section going to type it. I may have to do uppercase or it's like I did in speed buttons. Full date. For now, everything will be here. Player will want by 0 year ahead. Also, Then we will probably run another function that goes through the values, takes every single label, the proper value. This function is similar to the oh, here. I think this is where I'm going to utility function pluralizing words that you have 0 years, 1, and then 2 years. I'm just going to get my code. Some skills, pluralize. It's like something for some of the skills, pluralize. That's the word we want to pluralize. Then the number. Number is one. Word is word is word is here. Value. A singular case of so this is going to return year or years, but we are still not displaying the numerical will. Here's we do some string to do something like let's go basic here. And let's put the space here and see what happens. I'm gonna put the S and or not. Space. Let's run. I wonder if the scene here is going to respond. Or it's in debug mode, it actually failed. Let's see. But I actually do built-in, so visible. Steps. Yeah, we're heading into string. with it. Either go like this, go into this zone format, do it like this. Then actually calling a function in string here, supposed to format. Also had one digital string so that dates here is first arg on this go again on 6. Plus 4 dot oh formats the string, so it's by replacing all occur. I think I'm missing the advanced case with the simple string manipulation. We are waiting. Yeah, this is the more advanced. This Godot replace this format was for like when you put this way. Still run technically released. Side skill. Yeah, it's not reading the bill. It's not even. Let's run this again. Here is you. Oh, case sensitive and reading in the clear text. Stupid little mistake. Value. Copy that. This value is just going on. 6. Years, 10 years, 1 year, and we same thing. Mm, month. So if you're well, it's just rolling all this component work triggers the value. I should probably take another break and be back. Hmm. And we'll with the fast forward screen. Okay. We probably need a button here that will approve the selection. Close button up here. Um, need two buttons. Just, buttons. Next button. Close button. I might actually put them down below in the right. I mean, not slider. So that I don't accidentally click the close button. So this center something. Close it. Oh, that's fine. So when the close button is close button is close pressed, this is where we have re-enabled the game. So close state is no longer true. Let's look at the game, not game. We were doing this in time scene where we click the calendar, closing the game, stating the state of the pause button. So yeah, this is where this is two lines are. Because imagine the scenario. We will close the calendar UI, so we could always do get tree pause false calendar, but that won't reset the button here. But what the text is showing. This is still pretty much hard coded. We do call the game post within calendar, thinking that this is only going to falsify the post state because we know since the calendar UI is open, the game must have been paused and it should resume the game. So we will run the game, but Um, where is this going to be? Exactly where are we called? You see, like we have to pick a decent architecture here. This kind of UI thing is over the place. We're on the right track here, signals, but then that sidetrack calls. I'm getting some business calls right now, so I'm going to conclude the stream for today and do a short one tonight. Maybe not, but if I go too deep into this logic, then I won't take care of some of the other necessary stuff. So we'll call it a day for now. But I'm excited to do this work definitely. Bye now.